Chapter 5. The CCTV was as sketchy as they expected. Gary started the recording at around half an hour before John O'Toole checked into the hotel. It was common practice to watch at high speed the events that unfolded before the incident. As they were still awaiting a time of death, it would be interesting to see if there was anything going on before O'Toole checked in. The car park camera showed that he arrived on his own and had no interaction in the hotel grounds until he reached reception. The images were poor, but they all knew O'Toole and could see him from a mile off. His hair was the closest a white man could ever get to an afro. It hadn't changed since he was at school, never seeming to grow any longer, to be cut any shorter, or to recede in any way. Augustine marvelled at the way his hair just stayed put on top of his head. He wondered when they worked together if it might be a wig, but put that thought out of his mind as he looked at the screen with his colleagues. "There he is checking in, and there's the bag. Where the hell is it?" Electra wondered out loud. "The bag must lead us to the killer, don't you think?" Gary added for effect. The CCTV rolled on further to see John O'Toole walk across the hall and up the stairs towards the room they had witnessed his dead body in earlier. Nothing else. The hotel was sparsely populated. There was very little in the form of movement. The late arrival of O'Toole, and the fact it wasn't exactly high season in Washington, whatever that looked like, made sure of that. It was the kind of hotel that a secretary would book for their boss. Nothing inspiring, not close to town, but with good links to the A1 motorway. Then, movement. Someone made their way along the corridor of the same floor as John O'Toole. It looked male from the poor quality images. Someone over 6 foot tall, at any rate, with very short hair. The only other distinctive feature was a pair of white shoes. Their back was turned to the camera as they walked in. Gary fast-forwarded to see them leave, and they all scratched their heads at what they saw next. Gary at first pressed the pause on the CCTV. It was broken. The machine was replaying the walk from earlier. Gary rewound and pressed play again. The same error with the machine. The man who had walked through a few moments earlier was now on the screen in front of them, being rewound by the machine, so the same set of images replayed around 3 minutes after the first one. What was going on? Then he realized that the man had a case in his hand. It wasn't the CCTV machine. The man walked backwards out of the corridor with a case in his hand. Did he know where the CCTV cameras were? Or was this a ritual after a killing? He seemed to bow as he left the corridor and then disappeared off the screen, never to be seen again. "What the fuck?" Gary started. "At least we know he didn't leave via the reception. Time to talk to the manager again and see where else he could have left from." Gary stuck his head out of the door in his tactless style and asked the manager to come in. As the manager walked through the door, she was followed by Lou. His check of the local businesses drew a blank. He wasn't quite sure what he was looking for, but he would know if it turned up. "We need to know who has the passes to the rest of the hotel. From your crappy CCTV images, we can see someone come in and out of the floor the deceased's room was on, but they don't use the front entrance. Is there another way in and out without a pass?" The manager looked to the rest of the detective team, who were all trying to give an apology for Gary's abruptness without speaking. Electra's look straight in the eye was the closest any of them came to be giving off the air that they didn't agree with the way he spoke to others. But time was of the essence. Gary's direct way got results when they needed them quickly. "No, not really, not without us knowing." "So, were there any passes with ex-team members who you might have been dubious about?" "Yes, there was one. His name was Ken Lazarus. Now there's a name for you." She could see from the reaction of the team that they all knew Ken Lazarus. She was good at reading faces, even if she wasn't that good at remembering them. In her head, she tried to recall just what Ken Lazarus looked like, but there was a block in the way. It wasn't just Ken Lazarus that she had this block for. It was pretty much every face she had ever set eyes on. "And why do you mention this guy?" Gary asked, probing for more information. If there was a reason or two why she had brought the name up, then they might be onto something. "He gave me the creeps. He does that to a lot of people," commented Electra, who had no issues at all bringing up his face in her mind's eye. In fact, she very much wanted to erase the image of the guy from her head. "But more than that, he didn't leave on good terms. We were asked to take the guy on by head office. It was as though someone was looking after him from above. We were told he had a criminal record in the past, but that he had been part of a recidivism program at Durham Prison and was on the mend. We weren't going to give him any duties where cash was involved, but he would make a perfect maintenance guy. I suppose the work he did was of a good standard, but his interpersonal skills needed attention, shall we say." Electra could sense a tension in the voice of the hotel manager, like she was recalling a particular situation with Lazarus. "And were there any specific examples that you could tell us?" Electra asked, trying to intervene as little as possible, but keeping the conversation flowing. Lou was making notes. Trust Lou to stick to protocol and support the rest of the team. "When he left, he threatened to burn the place to the ground with all of us in it. Most of the others who worked here thought it was just an empty threat, but I had seen the evil in his eyes, and I believed every last word of it. I reported it to head office, and once again it was like he was being looked after from on high. We were told to drop it," the manager explained, with regret in her voice. It shook like the last leaf on a tree in the autumn wind. "He did what? They did what?" Electra intervened. It was all she could take. She was sick of people being treated like second-class citizens because they were in menial jobs. She saw it everywhere. Her friend was a solicitor, working on employment tribunals. The things that a company thought they could get away with because they had power and their employees didn't was startling. They would talk about it long into the night. Electra wished that was part of the role of the police, arresting the heads of big organizations to bring them to justice for their crimes against the ordinary man or woman on the street. But it was beyond her remit. "They just told us to get on with things. There were a few people down from head office asking if we were okay, but I got the impression they were far more interested in whether we were going to say something to someone. Anyway, I did what I was told. I can't afford to lose my job here with bills to pay and mouths to feed." "I'm shocked," Electra said, now not letting her desire to keep the hotel manager talking going. "I remember as clear as day Mr. White from head office coming to chat to me in this office. It was the only other time I've sat in this chair," she gestured. Gary realized at that point he had taken the manager's chair when looking at the CCTV and asking questions. It was high-backed, covered in blue hard-wearing fabric with adjustable arms, back and height. Must have cost a good few £100. Gary saw it as the throne he should rightfully occupy. "Let's look at asking Mr. Lazarus a few questions, shall we?" Augustine said by way of closing down the conversation.